Welcome to the Military Spouse Careers and Business Podcast, your source for in-depth information all about the job application, negotiation, transitioning, education processes, and the unique challenges and overcoming of those challenges experienced by military spouses. You'll hear inspiring stories from military spouses all over the world who have found a way to make their career work for them and not take a back seat. Thanks so much for tuning in. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm really excited about the guest that is here with me today. We've known each other for a while and have started to do some great partnerships together to help you find really meaningful and valuable freelance jobs. But she's also an expert in the freelance economy, having worked within it and been recruiting within it and building her own company as freelancing has really come to the forefront. So welcome to the show. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for the listeners?
Oh, thank you so much. I am so glad to be here today, and it's just been wonderful getting to know you, Laura. I think we're soulmates in many respects when it comes to the world of freelancing. So, just a real short story about me. I spent years in corporate America moving around, which is probably very familiar to many of the military audience that's listening today. So I kind of know what that feeling is like. And about 20 years ago, left corporate America and joined my first startup. And I've really been a kind of a serial entrepreneur and working with early stage and young companies as they find ways to grow in flexible, agile ways. And hired many freelancers myself along the way. In fact, I also freelance. So I try to keep my finger, on both sides. But over the course of the last few years, I really decided to create a new way to hire freelancers, and that's called results resourcing. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But I designed and developed a technology platform called Results Resourcing, and we're a hybrid, really, of a freelance job platform and a staffing agency, because I believe deeply that there can be great matches between small and mid-sized companies looking to scale and flexible professional freelancers that are looking for really to add value to organizations. And that's kind of my mission in life is bringing those two parties together. So I'm really delighted to know Laura and get to know her community and collaborate and add some value here.
Yeah, absolutely. I am so thrilled that we got connected. We got connected through an old mastermind friend of mine from like 2015. And I was just so grateful when she reached out and said, hey, you have got to meet Elizabeth. You have to talk to her. And as soon as we talked, I was like, oh, absolutely. She was right on. We are the exact type of people that need to connect. So you've been in this industry for a while. I have too. What have you seen that has changed in terms of freelancing from when you kind of first started with all of this?
Well, that's really a very timely question because, frankly, I think freelancing is really coming into its own. And as I mentioned earlier, I started to hire freelancers really 2009, 2010, something like that. So it's a long time ago. And I found it to be a very informal, loosely organized arena, from Craigslist to fledgling platforms like, at the time, Elance, Odesk, Mechanical Turk. These are all, some are still around. Elance and Odesk are Upwork today. And frankly, they're a huge publicly traded company, as is Fiverr. And so that in itself goes to show that things that were kind of loosely organized platform ideas at the time have really grown into very powerful technology platforms and a real marketplace for freelancers to deliver services and for clients to find the expertise that they need. And so using that kind of as a framework, I think that things have gotten more and more professional and organized and higher stakes. And if you think about COVID and even before COVID, the resistance to virtual workers was going down and down and down because the flexibility and the skill level you could hire through flexible workers was so compelling. But a lot of companies, especially smaller ones, resist change. That's human, and really preferred having people on site because it was easier and more familiar. And so over time, that has just COVID forced people to become virtual, whether they wanted to or not. And they've started to embrace virtual work much more openly. And as we're getting back to growing now, I think a lot of people are realizing that there's a lot of work that can still be virtual, even if I have a store and I'm a brick and mortar kind of organization. So what I really see is that there's going to be more and more demand for quality freelance workers. And I emphasize the quality, and I'm going to emphasize the word professional again, because I think freelancing is professionalizing. And, what started as something where people could be in between jobs and catch as catch can, I think that businesses are looking to make investments in talent, whether it's full-time employees or it's freelancers that become part of the team. And what I really see happening is the professionalization of the freelancer. And many are forming LLCs now and really becoming businesses and recognizing that what they're good at, whatever it is, graphic design, being a virtual assistant, WordPress development, whatever it is, that's a profession. And it's an expertise that they can bring to the table for clients. And the clients it only helps the clients gain confidence and have peace of mind knowing that they're hiring a professional contractor. And so actually, I think the word freelancer, gig worker, contractor, independent worker, those are all words that kind of commingle. And, contract work has been around forever. You hire contract attorneys, you hire contract accountants, contract bookkeepers. Those are professions that have been very commonly hired, on a contract basis. And now I think that's just expanding to more and more professions. And I think it's an incredible opportunity now for people, even if you're moving around a lot. Yeah, that's another great thing about freelancing is you can move and still provide services seamlessly to clients. So I think it's really a great opportunity for people to build businesses, around their freelance expertise.
I agree with you on all of those points. I think when I first started, I felt like a lot of people didn't take it seriously. It was not seen as a profession. It was not even really seen as a form of entrepreneurship, which it really is and always has been. I also found that when I started, a lot of the stuff was so dated. Like all the advice around freelance writing involved pitching magazines. And when I got started in 2012, I was like, even journalists who have been employed by these magazines for years are struggling to find employment. So how am I going to break in as a new freelance writer with a medium that is already on the decline? And so that was one of my struggles, was finding good resources and people I could trust to learn about freelancing. But I think you're right. More people are trusting of it, but you still need to showcase yourself as a professional. Are there any common mistakes that you think new freelancers make that are easily avoidable that they should kind of know about before jumping into this feet first?
I think the fundamental thing is, to be hired, you have to be found. And that's true, even if you're just socializing on Facebook. I think that really developing a professional persona online is really, really important. I happen to be a big fan of LinkedIn, not so much for the personal side of it, but it's an online digital business card. Mm-hmm. And so starting with having a real professional identity on LinkedIn, you may also have a website, you may have an Instagram, you might use other social media vehicles, but it's a really easy way for people to see who you are. And so really creating, your persona and your professional identity on something like LinkedIn is really powerful. But, whether you use LinkedIn or something else, it's really thinking about that professional identity, which is one of the things I love about what you do, Laura, is you're helping people to understand all these different ways to become known and how to leverage them to best advantage. And the other thing that I would really say is to think about being of service. It's not about you. It's about who you want to serve and how do you reach out to them and speak their language so they read whatever you're writing about. You're saying, oh yes, I get her. I need what he or she is offering. And that's true for me with results resourcing today. I can't be all proud about whatever I built. I mean, and it may be great, but at the end of the day, if clients don't go, oh, I need that, it doesn't really matter what I think. It's what they think. And so it's always putting yourselves in the shoes of the people you want to serve. And I think that will help you shape that professional identity out in the marketplace.
Yeah, I love that. I think you always have to be service first, even though your primary motivation might be to make money doing this. When you are overt about that or it feels salesy to clients, they are much less likely to be bought in because they feel like you're just trying to pitch them and convert them rather than having the solution to their problem and them feeling confident that you're the right person to do that. So let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned that there's a lot of different freelance platforms out there. That's certainly true. Some of them have been around forever and have evolved. It feels like there's new ones popping up all the time. What inspired you to start a freelance platform? Because I know I've heard in lots of like startup incubators, anything that has a two-sided market is super hard, right? Because you have to both have freelancers and you have to have clients. So I'm curious to know what inspired you to start something new in a competitive market like that?
Oh, that is my favorite question, I think, because it really is passion. Just as a short sidetrack, when I was in corporate America, I happened to be in the insurance industry on the commercial side. So I got to understand really what makes a good business run well, and a business with a lot of losses, why those losses happened. And it was a really interesting place to grow up. And I, ended up running a lot of businesses. And I had an opportunity actually to run a national accounts unit. And it got me looking at how many companies there were in the United States, Canada, and around the world that were much smaller than that Fortune 1000 kind of criteria. And it got me really excited about how can I serve a large number of businesses, in whatever I do. And actually, I think small business is the backbone of America. Whether you're talking or in any country, not just America, but I happen to focus primarily on the United States and Canada. But at the end of the day, that's where entrepreneurship is. And new businesses are starting all the time, whether it's a freelance entrepreneurship business or something more established. And so I got excited about that. And then when I made the jump to my first startup, I both worked at startups and I also consulted for them. I realized early on, because resources, particularly money, is always tight, no matter where you are, big or small. And I was looking for a way to hire really good but flexible talent. I went to some of these platforms like Craigslist and Odesk and Elance at the time, and I got really good at hiring people. But I was really good at it because I'd done it for years in my corporate life. Mm-hmm. And what I realized is that some of these platforms at the time offered human recruiters to help navigate the platforms. But over time, they didn't offer that anymore to small businesses, or certainly not individual consultants like I was. They still offered it to really big companies. They have all kinds of fancy enterprise packages, which makes sense for them because they built their platforms really without some of the economies of scale that you need to serve small clients with a human touch. And so that's really what inspired Results Resourcing, is recognizing that not everybody had my background. And so how could I help small business that wasn't skilled at recruiting, writing job descriptions, hiring, interviewing, all those sorts of things? How could I blend the efficiencies of a technology platform that would level the playing field, and through merit and the quality of a profile that gets set up, the professionalism of the freelancer standing out? How could I use technology to elevate those, the best freelancers, yet have a human kind of work on behalf of the client to, look at the freelancers that come to the top, vet them, interview them, and curate freelance talent for the client. So the client doesn't have to be expert at building a job description. We give them a survey to help them do that. We have a human to help them perfect their survey. And then we actually do the matching and the interviewing and the qualifying. And at the end of the day, it takes us about 3 weeks, but between our technology and our human expert recruiters, we curate a talent pool of 3 people that we think are the top individual freelancers. And again, our focus is on professional freelancers, or maybe even small agencies. There might be several freelancers that work together. And say a small creative agency or something like that. But we do all that work to bring those candidates forward to the clients. And they pay us a small fee to do it, but it's a small fee because we've automated so much. But we've only really letting the humans, which are the most costly part of the equation, but they're also the most intuitive and knowledgeable, and can kind of listen and respond to what the clients said and unsaid needs are. We end up curating talent, and they hire through Results Resourcing from the freelance talent pools we put together for them. And so it was really that inspiration to serve small business and to reduce the cost of finding great freelance talent by technology, but still leaving the human in the process. And actually the human benefits the freelancers too, because I don't think freelancers are widgets. I think they're individual professionals and they all bring something different to the table. And sometimes the client isn't even absolutely sure just exactly what they need. They know they need certain skills, things like that. But, we ultimately have our clients interview the freelancers that we put into the talent pool too, because, at the end of the day, they're the ones that need to work with the freelancer and we want to make a great match. And so I'm really about, not, short, tiny little low value projects. I'm about really building teams, hybrid teams between businesses. And if they're solopreneurs, one thing, but if they have, employees, a team of employees that maybe do the core work of the business, and then they're outsourcing essential work, but maybe not core value that their clients are going to pay for, but still needs to get done. Those are perfect roles for freelancers, whether it's administrative assistants or copywriters or social media. I mean, there's so many things that companies need these days that they don't need to be hiring full-time people. They can really hire really terrific freelancers, to be part of that team and provide that skill set.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there are trends around which freelance skills are most in demand right now?
Yes, very much so. Some of this I will say is a reflection of what results resourcing focuses on, and what we focus on is business skills as opposed to really in-depth technology software development skills, because I know those are definitely in demand too, but that's not something we particularly focus on. But in terms of business skills, the most popular job is an administrative or executive assistant, virtual assistant, those all terms that are used. And it really ranges from very basic work in the sense of it's still skilled, but it's email management, calendar management, data entry, all very important things to the well-running company. And it ranges up to, help me use my CRM system, or help me connect my mail marketing system and my CRM system. So it really can vary. And some people want bilingual. I mean, it's just really a very wide ranging role. And that is the most popular job. And after that, it's really in the areas of social. Well, I think marketing is social today, but it's marketing, social media marketing, and social media administration, which, social media marketing might include some copywriting. It might be creating blogs, things like that, newsletters. But there's also truly a purely administrative role. If the company has the copywriting or the marketing side covered, they may simply need somebody to help them administer it, manage the communities, those sorts of things. So those are the biggest areas that I see. But, after that, it's really a smorgasbord of, graphic designers, WordPress developers. While we don't do technology, we certainly do template technology like WordPress, things that are using pre-existing software platforms.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've seen the same thing. I mean, there's kind of a split between a lot of people realizing they need to outsource to have an executive or administrative assistant. That's sort of one of the first things that a lot of people will outsource to. It's the thing that's most comfortable. But on the other side of that spectrum, there's also a lot of demand for some of these things that are extremely technical. So if you had to give advice to a totally new freelancer who is like jumping into this for the very first time, and you want to give them some tip of advice that would help them avoid some of the most common challenges, what would you say to someone who's getting their very first start, trying to get that very first client?
Oh, well, so I would think, going back to my first remarks, would be to really work on getting your profile as professional and clear about your value proposition as possible, how you can serve, and really almost giving examples so people can see themselves in your services, in terms of, even if you've never freelanced before, but you love to write, then you can talk about your passion for writing and what you write and providing samples, of that. So I think that would be, kind of the key starting point. And then I think that, it's really useful to practice. There's tons of platforms out there. I mean, somebody told me the other day that there's over 1,000. And some are highly specialized and others are really broad, like the big ones. And you can go on those platforms and first of all, you can type in whatever it is you want to do. Let's just keep it with the copywriting example. You can type in copywriting on all of these platforms and all of a sudden you'll see all these other people that do what you want to do. And you can look at their profiles, see what they say, how they promote themselves, looking particularly, if the information is available, which ones are quote unquote the most successful, whether it's in terms of ratings or numbers of jobs. So I think you can learn a lot by going out there and seeing what other people have done going before you. Then you can do that on professional sites like LinkedIn too. So I think that that's a great place to learn and see examples of ways other people have done it. And then I think it's important to just start applying and just get used to that process of applying. And a lot of people, when you won't pay attention or you'll be rejected. I mean, that happens to me too when I freelance. But I think that practice is really important. And I think it helps you get that voice of service. And you'll also see how people ask for what they need. And you'll see that the clients, frankly, have ranged from very little ability to communicate what they need to doing it so detailed that it's almost intimidating. And so it's really finding that balance, in terms of responding. And you'll also start to discover which jobs appeal to you and which ones don't. Because I think that if a client doesn't do a good job describing what they need, that's a sign of what you're going to expect working with them. But that doesn't mean they're going to be happy or even own up to the fact that they're not organized and focused. So, I mean, I think you can read a lot about the capabilities of the client too, because they're not all created equal either. But it's like everybody. You've got your skill set. Somebody could have a great idea, but not be super good at expressing what they need, but they could still be a great person to work for or work with. So, I think the practicing is really, really important. And then I think the last thing that I would say is that one of the things that turns me off the most, but I get how it happens, is when I read a proposal that is obviously a cut and paste job, that rather than looking at the proposal form and the questions that are being asked fresh, somebody cut and paste, what they did at another proposal, right into that one. And I'm even okay with that being a starting point, but to customize your proposal, I think is really important because it shows that you're paying attention to the client. And it's just not this rote routine of cut and paste. Because when I see one of those, I think, oh, they haven't really read what I want. So do they really know what I need and can they really deliver it? And if they don't care about me enough to customize proposal, that sends me a message. And I'm going to pay more attention to somebody that's taken the time to customize. Now I understand because I, as a freelancer, do this too. You propose a lot and you don't always get the work and it gets tiring. But what might be the 100th time you do a proposal is the first time the client's going to see your proposal. Mm-hmm. And right. So that impression is really, really important. As hard and discouraging sometimes as the proposal process is, finding that way to be fresh and make the client feel like you've really heard them and want to serve, and here's how you can help in a custom way is really, really important.
You have shared so many incredible tips with the audience in this episode. Where can people go to learn more about results resourcing and to consider signing up as a freelancer?
Great. Thank you so much. Well, our platform is called Results Resourcing. And we named it that because we resource results. And we call ourselves the freelance platform that comes with your own recruiter. And we are focused on the buyer, the person, the company that is hiring, because we can't give a job to a freelancer if somebody hasn't posted one. So our focus is on the buyer. But we recognize, as Laura said earlier, that the other half of the equation are the talented freelancers. And, we go to great pains to build a roster of super freelancers. And when we make our matches, we guarantee them. For the first 30 days, when we put a talent pool out to our clients, we guarantee that those are good matches. And so we care very, very much about the freelancers that work on our platform. And we want them to be happy and successful too. So I really see it as a win-win on both sides, or a three-way win, because for results resourcing to win, we want the buyer and the seller to be happy too. So our website is www.resultsresourcing.net. It converts to .com, but it's Results Resourcing is the name of the company. And my name is Elizabeth Eiss, EISS, and you can check me out on LinkedIn and see all the things that we're involved in. And we also have a very quick 2-minute video that is both on our website and also on my LinkedIn profile that gives you a little better sense of exactly what we do and how we do it. And great freelancers are a really critical part of the equation. So I really appreciate the opportunity to join you on this podcast and to address all your fans.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. Our show is sponsored by Operation Freelance, a 501c3 nonprofit that helps military spouses, veterans, and caregivers break into freelance work. To learn more about that, visit www.operationfreelance.org. If you're looking to access show notes and more information about the guests you heard on today's show, please visit betterbizacademy.com.